She came home early and found her husband crying in the kitchen. He didn't hear her come in. Then he said on the phone, "I can't lie to her anymore." "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty wrap every woman in unshakable strength, endless love, and wisdom that guides generations. May her heart be filled with peace that heals the world, her courage illuminate the darkest paths, and her spirit remain untouchable by despair. She is the silent force that builds homes, the gentle power that nurtures souls, and the light that keeps families alive. May every woman be honored, protected, and celebrated, not only for what she gives, but for who she is. May blessings flow to her effortlessly, may her dreams soar higher than ever, and may love, respect, and joy surround her every day. My beautiful family, I see you are taking interest in the story even without liking or commenting. I feel your presence, but please tell me, is it because you forgot your brother Mr. Peter, or do you think I am done? Reply me, share the reason from your heart. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." She came home early and found her husband crying in the kitchen, and in that moment, she realized she'd been living with a stranger. Cicely Thompson set her leather portfolio quietly on the hallway table, her architect's trained eye immediately registering the unusual scene before her. The kitchen lights blazed too bright for the late evening hour, and Bradley Norton, her husband of 27 years, sat hunched over the granite island, his shoulders shaking with sobs she'd never witnessed in all their decades together. His phone pressed against his ear, and his voice cracked with emotion. "I can't do this anymore, Reese. I can't lie to her anymore. She deserves to know." Cicely felt the floor shift beneath her Italian leather heels, but she didn't stumble. She stood perfectly still in the doorway, watching this man who shared her bed, her home, her history, and recognized nothing of him in this moment. Bradley's hand trembled as he wiped his face. "The baby changes everything. I have to tell her tonight. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The baby. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire she hadn't realized was burning down her entire life. He ended the call and turned, finally sensing her presence. His face drained of color. "Cicely, I didn't hear you come in." "Clearly." Her voice emerged steady, cold, unfamiliar even to herself. She stepped into the kitchen, setting her keys on the counter with deliberate precision. "Who's Reese?" Bradley's mouth opened and closed. His eyes, those pale blue eyes she'd once found so handsome, filled with fresh tears. "I need to tell you something. Please sit down." "I'll stand." He stood too, as if sitting while she stood would be some additional insult. "I've been seeing someone. Her name is Reese Ball. She's pregnant." Cicely watched his lips form the words, watched the tears spill down his cheeks, watched him reach toward her as if she might collapse. She felt nothing, no rage, no grief, just a strange, crystalline clarity. "How long?" she asked. 8 months. "Cicely, I'm so sorry." 8 months. She repeated the words carefully, tasting them. 8 months of lies. 8 months of him touching another woman, and then coming home to touch her. 8 months of deception while she cooked his meals, laundered his clothes, celebrated his surgical successes, and made herself small so he could feel big. "I never meant for this to happen," Bradley said, his voice breaking. We connected. She made me feel..." "Stop." Cicely held up one hand, her wedding ring catching the overhead light. "I don't need to hear what she made you feel. Get out of this house, tonight." "Cicely, please, can we just talk about..." "Get out!" Bradley stared at her, seemingly shocked by her composure. He'd probably expected hysterics, screaming, begging. Instead, he got the woman who'd designed 12 major buildings in this city, who'd negotiated million-dollar contracts, who'd raised 2 children essentially alone while he played God at the hospital. He got the woman he'd forgotten existed. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked, and she heard the petulance in his voice, the entitled whine of a man who'd never faced real consequences. "I imagine Reese has space for you and your baby." Cicely pulled her phone from her jacket pocket with steady hands. "You have 1 hour to pack what you need. I'll be in my study. Don't speak to me again tonight." She walked past him, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor she'd chosen in the house she'd helped purchase through the life she'd built. In her study, she closed the door and leaned against it for exactly 10 seconds, allowing herself that small moment of human weakness. Then she opened her laptop and pulled out the leather journal from her desk drawer, the one she'd been keeping for the past 4 months, since the night she'd noticed the change in him. The distance, the late nights, the way he'd started showering immediately when he came home, the credit card charges he thought she didn't notice. She'd documented everything, dates, times, inconsistencies in his stories. She'd even had lunch with Lorraine Foster, her college roommate who'd become one of the city's most ruthless divorce attorneys. That lunch had been 3 months ago. Cicely had known, she'd known, and she'd been preparing. Now she picked up her phone and called Lorraine. Her friend answered on the second ring. "Lorraine, it's Cicely. It's time. I need you to start the paperwork first thing tomorrow morning." He finally confessed? She's pregnant. Lorraine's sharp intake of breath told Cicely everything she needed to know about how this would play out in court. "I'll have papers drawn up by noon tomorrow. Don't sign anything he gives you. Don't agree to anything verbal. And Cicely?" "Yes?" "You're going to be fine. Better than fine. You're going to be free." After the call, Cicely sat at her desk and opened her email. She composed a message to her firm's partners requesting a leave of absence for the following week. "Personal matters," she wrote. Then she opened a new browser tab and pulled up the website she'd bookmarked months ago. Architectural tours of Italy, 10 days. Solo traveler packages. She'd looked at this trip a decade ago before Bradley had convinced her they needed to save money for the kids' college funds, even though those funds were already fully secured. She'd looked at it 5 years ago when he'd said they should wait until he retired so he could come with her, even though she'd wanted to go alone. She'd looked at it last year when he'd said traveling alone was sad for a woman her age. Now, at 52 years old, Cicely Thompson clicked Book Now and entered her credit card information. The confirmation email arrived instantly. 2 weeks from today, she'd be in Rome. Upstairs, she heard Bradley moving around, opening drawers, closing suitcases. She heard him pause outside her study door, heard him take a breath as if he might knock. He didn't. 20 minutes later, his car started in the driveway. The garage door opened and closed. The house fell silent. Cicely walked through each room, turning off lights, checking locks. In the bedroom they'd shared, she stripped the sheets from the bed and put them directly into the washing machine. She wouldn't sleep in those sheets again. Instead, she made up the guest room with fresh linens. She took a long shower, letting water as hot as she could stand wash away the feeling of his hands, his lies, his betrayal. When she finally lay down in the narrow guest bed, she expected tears, expected rage, expected something to break inside her. Instead, she felt light, unburdened, as if she'd been carrying a weight for so long she'd forgotten it was there, and someone had finally lifted it off her shoulders. Her phone buzzed with a text from Bradley. "I'm sorry, I love you. Can we please talk tomorrow?" Cicely deleted it without responding. Then she opened her journal to a fresh page and wrote, "Day 1 of my new life. I am 52 years old, and I am finally free." She set the journal aside and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she would call her children. Tomorrow, she would meet with Lorraine. Tomorrow, she would begin the systematic dismantling of the life she'd built for a man who'd never deserved her labor. But tonight, in this quiet house that was finally, blissfully just hers, Cicely Thompson smiled. The woman Bradley Norton had tried to diminish for 27 years was about to show him exactly who she'd always been, magnificent, powerful, and utterly unstoppable, and he'd destroyed the only thing keeping that power contained. Chapter 2. The woman he never really knew. For 27 years, she made herself smaller so he could feel bigger. Tonight, she remembered who she was before him. Cicely stood in the middle of her walk-in closet at 6 in the morning, systematically removing every piece of clothing Bradley had ever commented on. The dress, he said, made her look too professional for a dinner party. The suit, he claimed, was too expensive, even though she'd earned the money herself. The jeans, he'd joked, made her look her age. Into donation bags they went, one after another. Her daughter Simone arrived at 7, letting herself in with the key she'd had since college. At 26, Simone had her mother's deep brown skin and sharp cheekbones, but her father's height. She found Cicely in the closet, surrounded by bags. "Mom, your text said it was urgent. What's going on?" Cicely didn't stop folding. "Your father is having an affair with a woman named Reese Ball. She's pregnant. He moved out last night. I'm filing for divorce today, and I'm going to Italy next week. I need you to tell your brother, because I can only have this conversation once right now." Simone sank onto the ottoman. "What? You heard me correctly." Cicely finally looked at her daughter, seeing the shock ripple across her face. "I know this is a lot to process. Take your time." "Take my time? Mom, are you okay? Do you need me to stay with you?" "I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than I've been in years." Cicely picked up another dress, red, bold, beautiful. She'd bought it on impulse 3 years ago and never worn it because Bradley said red was trying too hard for a woman over 50. She held it up. "I'm keeping this one." Simone stood and took the dress from her mother's hands, setting it aside. Then she pulled Cicely into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry, Mom." Cicely allowed herself to be held for a moment before stepping back. "Don't be sorry. Be angry if you want. Be disappointed in your father. But don't be sorry for me. This is the best thing that could have happened." "How long have you known?" "Suspected 4 months. Knew for certain?" "Last night." Cicely returned to her systematic purging. "I've been preparing. I have a lawyer. I have a plan. What I need from you and your brother is to not try to mediate or fix this. Your father made his choice. Now I'm making mine." Simone sat back down, processing. "Who's Reese Ball?" "I don't know yet, but I will." Cicely pulled out her phone and showed Simone a photo she'd found on social media the night before, after 2 hours of searching. A young blonde woman with a wide smile, standing in front of a pharmaceutical sales award banner. 31 years old, works in pharmaceutical sales. Your father met her at the hospital. She's barely older than me. Yes. That's disgusting. Yes. Simone looked at the photo, then at her mother. You're prettier than her. Despite everything, Cicely laughed. That's not the point, baby. But thank you. They spent the next hour going through the closet together. Simone asked careful questions, and Cicely answered them honestly. No, she wasn't going to try to work it out. No, she didn't want family counseling. Yes, she was absolutely certain. When Julian arrived, 24 years old, intense, and already angry based on Simone's call, Cicely made coffee and sat them both down at the kitchen table. Your father had an affair, she said plainly. The woman is pregnant. I'm divorcing him. You're both adults, and you'll navigate your relationships with him however you choose. But I need you to hear this. I don't want you in the middle. Don't carry messages. Don't try to fix this, and don't you dare feel sorry for me. Julian's jaw clenched. Did he say why? Does it matter? It matters to me. Cicely considered her son, so much like her, quick to anger on behalf of people he loved. He said she made him feel something, that they connected. He said he never meant for it to happen. That's bullshit, Julian said flatly. Cheating doesn't just happen. You don't trip and fall into someone else's bed for 8 months. No, you don't. Cicely sipped her coffee, grateful for her children's loyalty even as she worried about their pain. But that's between him and his conscience now. I'm moving forward. Simone reached across the table and took her mother's hand. What do you need from us? Live your lives, be happy, and maybe help me figure out what to pack for Italy because I haven't been on a vacation by myself since before you were born. Both her children stared at her. Julian spoke first. You're going on vacation? Now? Next week. 10 days. Rome, Florence, Venice, solo. Sicily smiled at their shocked faces. I'm 52 years old, and I've spent 27 years building a life around your father's schedule, your father's preferences, your father's career. I put him through medical school while working 2 jobs. I delayed my own architecture degree by 6 years. And when I finally built my firm, he acted like it was a cute hobby. She set down her coffee cup with deliberate care. So yes, I'm going to Italy. I'm going to eat pasta and drink wine and sketch buildings and not think about Bradley Norton for 10 beautiful days. And when I come back, I'm going to build a life so extraordinary that his affair becomes nothing more than a footnote in my story. Simone's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Mom, you're kind of a badass. No, honey, I've always been a badass. I just forgot for a while. After her children left, reluctantly with promises to call every day, Cicely drove to Lorraine's office downtown. The law firm occupied the 23rd floor of a building Cicely had helped design 8 years ago. She'd forgotten that detail until she walked in and saw her signature architectural elements everywhere. She'd designed the space where she would now dismantle her marriage. The irony wasn't lost on her. Lorraine met her in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At 54, Lorraine was all sharp edges and sharper intellect, her silver hair cut in a precise bob. Tell me everything, Lorraine said, sliding a legal pad across the table. Cicely did. She produced her journal with its meticulous documentation, credit card statements, photos of text message timestamps, a list of late nights and business trips that coincided with charges at restaurants and hotels across the city. Lorraine reviewed everything with the clinical precision of a surgeon, which Cicely thought was exactly what she needed. Someone to cut out the diseased parts of her life without sentimentality. This is excellent documentation, Lorraine said finally. You've essentially done half my work. Now what do you want? Everything I'm entitled to legally. The house, I found it, I decorated it, and my name is on the deed. My firm is solely mine. He has no claim to it, but I want a full accounting of all joint assets and an equitable split of everything we built together. What about alimony? Cicely considered. I don't need his money. I make more than he does. But I want him to feel the financial impact of his choices. Can we request it anyway? Lorraine smiled like a shark. Oh, honey, we can do so much better than that. Did you know Bradley took out a second mortgage on your house 8 months ago? The room tilted slightly. What? $50,000. I pulled the records this morning. Lorraine slid a printout across the table. Want to guess what he spent it on? Cicely looked at the dates. 8 months ago, when the affair started. Her business venture. I'm guessing, but we'll find out. And when we do, we'll make sure every penny comes out of his half, not yours. Lorraine leaned forward. Cicely, I've known you since we were 19 years old. I watched you give up everything for that man. I watched you make yourself smaller and smaller until I barely recognized the brilliant woman I used to stay up all night with, talking about changing the world. So here's my question. Do you want to be fair, or do you want to win? Cicely thought about Bradley's tears, his apologies, the way he'd reached for her, as if he had any right to comfort after what he'd done. I want to win, she said. Good. Lorraine opened her laptop. Then let's burn his life down. They spent 3 hours going through every asset, every account, every investment. Cicely learned things about her own finances that Bradley had kept from her, including a trust fund from his grandmother that he'd claimed was just for emergencies, but had never materialized when she'd needed emergency surgery 5 years ago. By the time Cicely left the office, she had a strategy, a timeline, and a sense of righteous fury that felt better than grief. She drove home and walked straight to her home office. In the back of her closet, behind boxes of old tax returns, she found what she was looking for, a dusty cardboard box labeled College Projects. Inside were her original sketches from architecture school, designs that had won awards, concepts that had made her professors predict she'd be revolutionary, dreams she'd packed away when Bradley's career became the priority. Beneath the sketches, she found something else. A brochure for a solo trip to Italy she'd planned 15 years ago, before kids, before sacrifice, before she'd convinced herself that being a good wife meant making herself invisible. Cicely sat on the floor of her closet, surrounded by the evidence of who she'd once been, and made a decision. She wasn't just going to divorce Bradley Norton, she was going to become herself again, the fearless, brilliant, unstoppable woman who'd existed before he'd convinced her she was too much. And when she was done, he would spend the rest of his life knowing exactly what he'd lost. Chapter 3. The First Bloom. She didn't need revenge. She needed to remember she was magnificent all on her own. The late September Roman sun felt like a baptism against Cicely's face as she stood in the Piazza Navona, sketchbook balanced on her forearm. Around her, tourists and locals flowed like water around Bernini's fountains, but she stood still, capturing the Baroque curves of the architecture with confident strokes of charcoal. She'd been in Italy for 8 days, and somewhere between the Colosseum and the Sistine Chapel, between plates of cacio e pepe eaten alone at sunset and early morning cappuccinos in tiny cafes where no one knew her name, Cicely Thompson had remembered something crucial. She liked herself. More than that, she was in love with herself. "Bellissima," an elderly Italian woman said, pausing to look at Cicely's sketch. "You have the eye of an artist." "I'm an architect," Cicely replied in hesitant Italian, a language she'd been teaching herself through apps during every spare moment. "Ah, then you understand. These buildings, they are love letters, yes? From the past to the future." After the woman moved on, Cicely stared at her own words in wonder. "I'm an architect. Not I do architecture or I work in design." For the first time in years, she'd claimed her identity without apologizing for it. That evening, she had dinner at a trattoria near the Spanish Steps. The waiter, perhaps sensing she was alone but not lonely, gave her the best table, a corner spot with a view of the twilight sky turning purple over the ancient city. She ordered in broken Italian and didn't care that she probably sounded ridiculous. She ate slowly, savoring every bite of saltimbocca, every sip of Montepulciano. She pulled out her sketchbook and drew the arch of the doorway across the street, the curve of a woman's laugh, the way the light caught the wine in her glass. A man at the bar kept glancing at her. Handsome, perhaps 50, well-dressed. 6 months ago she would have looked away, made herself smaller, sent signals that she was married and unavailable. Tonight she met his gaze and smiled politely before returning to her sketch. She wasn't interested, not because he wasn't attractive, but because she was full, complete. She needed nothing from him or anyone else. When she returned to her hotel room, she found 17 missed calls from Bradley and a voicemail. Against her better judgment, she listened to it. "Cicely, please call me back. I need to talk to you about the house, about the accounts. Lorraine won't return my lawyer's calls. We need to discuss this like adults. I know you're angry, but we had 27 years together. That has to count for something. Call me." She deleted the message and opened her email instead. There was a message from the head of her firm with the subject line, "New Opportunity." Cicely read it twice, her heart rate climbing with each word. A developer in Dubai wanted to commission her, specifically her, to design a women's wellness center. Budget, unlimited. Timeline, 2 years. Creative control, complete. It was the kind of project architects dreamed about their entire careers. She wrote back immediately, "I'm interested. Let's discuss when I return. I have ideas." Then she opened her journal and wrote, "Day 8. I ate dinner alone and wasn't lonely. A man looked at me and I didn't need his attention. I got offered my dream project. I am learning that happiness isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build for yourself, brick by brick, just like the buildings I design." She returned from Italy on a Tuesday morning. Julian picked her up from the airport and his eyes widened when he saw her. "Mom, you look different." "I got my hair cut in Florence." She touched the shorter style, a chic bob that framed her face. And I bought new clothes, and I ate gelato every day, and I sketched until my hands cramped, and I didn't think about your father for more than 5 minutes at a time. Julian grabbed her bags, grinning. Okay, seriously, who are you and what did you do with my mother? Your mother finally remembered she's more than someone's wife. At home, the house felt different, lighter. She'd had the locks changed while she was gone, Lorraine's suggestion, and coming through the door with her new key felt ceremonial. This was her house now, her space, her sanctuary. She spent the afternoon unpacking and rearranging. The photos of Bradley came down from the walls. In their place, she hung the sketches she'd made in Italy. Her bedroom got redecorated, new bedding in bold jewel tones, new artwork, new everything. She was in the middle of rearranging her closet when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw Bradley standing on the porch, looking haggard and desperate. She opened the door but didn't invite him in. Cicely, thank God, I've been trying to reach you for 10 days. I was in Italy. His face registered shock. You went to Italy? Now? In the middle of everything? There is no everything, Bradley. There's you, dealing with the consequences of your choices, and me living my life. What do you want? Can I come in? We need to talk. No, you can't come in. This is my house. You gave up the right to enter it when you moved out. She crossed her arms, aware that she was wearing one of her new outfits, linen pants and a silk blouse she'd bought in Rome, expensive and elegant. Say what you need to say from there. Bradley looked past her, seeing the changes inside. His photos gone, the new artwork. You redecorated. It's my house. It's our house. My name is on the deed too. Actually, if you'd read the paperwork Lorraine sent to your lawyer, you'd know that my name is primary on the deed because I found this house and made the down payment from my inheritance from my grandmother. You're listed as co-owner only because I added you after we married. Lorraine assures me that with evidence of your affair and the unauthorized second mortgage you took out, the judge will almost certainly award me sole ownership. Bradley's face paled. What second mortgage? The $50,000 loan you took out against our house 8 months ago. The one you used to fund Reese's boutique business. The one that's coming entirely out of your share of our assets. Cicely kept her voice level, professional. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I was going to pay it back. With what money? The salary you're about to split with me in the divorce. She shook her head. You made very poor financial decisions, Bradley, but they're your decisions now, not ours. Cicely, please, can we just talk about this? 27 years has to mean something. It does mean something. It means I gave you 27 years of my life, and you decided a 31-year-old pharmaceutical rep was worth throwing it all away. She stepped back. If you need to discuss legal matters, contact Lorraine. If you need to discuss finances, contact my accountant. If you need to discuss the children, you can text me, but you and I have nothing to say to each other. I made a mistake, Bradley said, and now there were tears in his eyes. Reese, the baby, all of it. It's a mistake. I love you. Can't we work through this? Cicely stared at him, this man who'd shared her bed for nearly 3 decades and felt nothing but pity. Bradley, I've been carrying you for 27 years. Putting you down was the easiest thing I've ever done. Now get off my porch. She closed the door in his face and locked it, listening to him stand there for a full minute before finally walking away. Through the window, she watched him get into his car, not the BMW he usually drove, she noticed, but an older sedan, probably Reese's. Good. He was already learning what it cost to throw away a life. That evening, Simone came over with Thai food, and they ate dinner on the floor of the living room, while Cicely showed her daughter all her sketches from Italy. Mom, these are incredible, Simone said, studying a drawing of the Duomo in Florence. You should frame them. I'm going to fill this house with art and beauty and things that make me happy. Cicely picked up another sketch, a street musician she'd seen in Venice. I spent so many years decorating around your father's preferences. He liked everything minimal and neutral, boring. But I love color. I love texture. I love art that makes you feel something. So why did you let him turn you into someone who didn't? It was a fair question. Cicely thought about it while she ate her pad thai. Because I thought that's what love was. Compromise, sacrifice, making someone else comfortable even if it meant you were uncomfortable. But real love doesn't require you to disappear, does it? No, Simone said softly. It doesn't. Your father always made me feel like I was too much, too ambitious, too successful, too opinionated. I spent years trying to be less intimidating, less accomplished, less visible, so he could feel like more. Cicely set down her food, no longer hungry. The irony is that making myself smaller didn't make him love me more. It just made him respect me less. He saw my accommodations as weakness, not love. That's his failure, Mom, not yours. I know that now. Cicely picked up her wineglass. And I know something else too. I like who I am when I'm not trying to be smaller. I like being ambitious and successful and opinionated. I like taking up space, and I am never ever going to apologize for it again. Simone raised her own glass. To taking up space. To taking up all the damn space, Cicely corrected, and they both laughed. After Simone left, Cicely sat in her newly rearranged living room and opened her laptop. She pulled up the email from the Dubai developer and began outlining her vision for the Women's Wellness Center. She worked until past midnight, ideas flowing like they hadn't in years. When she finally went to bed, in her new bedroom that looked nothing like the one she'd shared with Bradley, she felt exhausted but exhilarated. Tomorrow, she had a meeting with her firm's partners to discuss the Dubai project. Next week, she was scheduled to give a talk at the university about sustainable architecture. And somewhere in this city, Bradley Norton was learning that the woman he'd underestimated was about to become impossible to ignore. Cicely fell asleep smiling, dreaming of buildings that touched the sky. Chapter 4. The Mistress Gets Reality. Reese Ball thought she won a doctor. She inherited a debt-ridden, aging man who couldn't change a diaper. Bradley Norton stared at the water stain on the ceiling of Reese's apartment and wondered how his life had fallen apart so quickly. 2 months. That's all it had taken for everything he'd built, career, reputation, family, to crumble into something he barely recognized. The apartment was small, cramped, nothing like the spacious home he'd left. Reese's clothes were everywhere, her makeup covered every surface in the bathroom, and the smell of her vanilla candles, which he'd once found sexy, now gave him a headache that pulsed behind his eyes. "Bradley!" Reese's voice came from the bathroom, sharp with irritation. "Can you bring me my phone? I'm in the bathtub and I need to text the contractor about the boutique." He grabbed her phone from the counter and brought it to her. She was submerged in bubbles, her belly just beginning to show. 6 months pregnant now, though they'd only been together for 10 months total. The math didn't add up to marriage, to stability, to any of the things he'd imagined when he'd left Sicily. "Thanks, babe." She didn't look up from her phone as he set it on the tub's edge. "Oh, and can you grab me that towel? This water's getting cold." He fetched the towel. She took it without acknowledging him, already absorbed in her texts. "Reese, we need to talk about money." "Not now, Bradley. I'm stressed enough about this boutique situation." "That's what I need to talk about. The boutique. I can't keep funding it. The lawyer bills from the divorce are—" She looked up sharply. "What do you mean you can't keep funding it? You promised me that money. I've already signed a lease, ordered inventory. I can't just back out now. I promised you before I knew my wife had documentation of every charge, every late night, every lie I told. Her lawyer is taking me apart piece by piece." Bradley sat on the toilet lid, exhausted. "They found the second mortgage. They're making me pay it back from my share of the assets. That's not my problem. You're the one who messed up your marriage, not me." Bradley stared at her, really looked at her for the first time in weeks. When had she become so cold? Or had she always been this way, and he'd been too infatuated to notice? His phone buzzed with a text from his son. He opened it and felt his heart sink. "Don't contact me again until you figure out how to be a decent human being." Julian had blocked him. His 24-year-old son, the boy he'd taught to throw a baseball, the kid he'd driven to soccer practice every Saturday for 10 years, had blocked his number. "Everything okay?" Reese asked, but she still wasn't looking at him. "My son blocked me." "Oh, that's tough." Her tone suggested it was only slightly more inconvenient than bad weather. "Can you make me some tea before you go to work?" Meanwhile, across the city, Cicely was being interviewed for Architectural Digest. The photographer had spent an hour capturing her in her home office, surrounded by sketches and models, the late afternoon light turning everything golden. "Tell me about your design philosophy," the interviewer asked. Cicely thought carefully before answering. "I believe buildings should serve the people who use them, not the egos of the people who design them. For too long, architecture has been about making statements. I want to make spaces where women feel powerful, where communities feel connected, where beauty meets function. Your firm just announced the Dubai Wellness Center project. What can you tell us about that?" "It's going to be a sanctuary, a place where women from all backgrounds can access healthcare, fitness, education, and community support. The design incorporates traditional Islamic architecture with contemporary sustainable technology. We're using solar panels disguised as decorative screens, rainwater collection systems that double as water features, and natural cooling systems that reduce energy consumption by 60%. The interviewer smiled. "You sound passionate about this." "I am. I spent too many years designing what other people wanted instead of what was needed. This project is a chance to build something meaningful." When the interview finished and the crew packed up, Cicely checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Bradley's mother, Patricia. She called back immediately. "Cicely, thank you for calling me back." Patricia's voice was strained. "I know you're going through a difficult time, but I need to see you. Can we have dinner?" They met at Patricia's favorite restaurant, a quiet Italian place where she and Cicely had celebrated birthdays and holidays for decades. Patricia looked older than she had at Thanksgiving, more fragile, worn down by her son's choices. "I want you to know I'm ashamed of Bradley," Patricia said without preamble. "What he did is unforgivable." "Patricia, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do." The older woman reached across the table and took Cicely's hand. "You are my daughter. You've been my daughter for 27 years. Bradley's mistakes don't change that. I won't lose you because my son is a fool." Cicely's eyes filled with tears, the first she'd cried since finding out about the affair. "Thank you. That means more than you know. I have something for you." Patricia pulled a small box from her purse. This was Bradley's grandmother's engagement ring. The diamond is worth about $75,000. It's been in our family for 3 generations, and it was always meant to go to the woman who held our family together. She pushed the box across the table. "That's you, Cicely. Not some girl he picked up at the hospital. You." Inside was a stunning Art Deco ring, the diamond catching the candlelight. Cicely gasped. "Patricia, I can't take this. It's Bradley's inheritance. It's my inheritance to give, and I'm giving it to you. Besides, it's a better investment than anything Bradley's doing with money these days." Patricia's smile was sad. "Promise me you'll wear it. Not as a wedding ring, as a reminder that you are valued, you are loved, and you are exactly enough just as you are." Cicely slipped the ring onto her right hand. It fit perfectly. "I promise." After dinner, Patricia handed her one more thing, a check for $25,000. "For your legal fees, don't argue with me. Bradley caused this mess. The Norton family will help clean it up." Driving home, Cicely caught sight of her reflection in the rearview mirror. The ring sparkled on her hand. She looked different somehow, stronger, more certain. She looked like a woman who was winning. At that same moment, Bradley was sitting across from Reese at a chain restaurant because it's all they could afford now, listening to her complain about everything from the food quality to his choice of table. "I can't believe you picked this place," Reese said, pushing her salad around. "You know I hate these corporate chains." You said you wanted something quick and inexpensive. I didn't mean this inexpensive. God, Bradley, you used to take me to nice places. That was before I had 2 households to support and a divorce lawyer billing me $400 an hour. Reese's face hardened. You're not going to start blaming me for your divorce, are you? Because I'm not the one who was unhappy in that marriage. I wasn't unhappy, Bradley said quietly, the truth of it hitting him like a physical blow. I was bored. There's a difference. Wow, great. So I'm what? Your midlife crisis? You're the mother of my child. Allegedly. She said it so casually, like it was a joke. Bradley's blood went cold. What? Nothing. Forget it. But she was smiling, a small, mean smile that made him feel sick. His phone buzzed with a notification. Simone had posted something on social media, photos of Sicily at an art gallery opening, looking stunning in a red dress he'd never seen, laughing with a group of accomplished-looking people. The caption read, "My incredible mother, living her best life." The comments poured in, friends praising Sicily's strength, colleagues congratulating her on the Dubai project, strangers calling her an inspiration. Bradley showed the photo to Reese. That's my wife. Your ex-wife. And she looks desperate for attention if you ask me. But Sicily didn't look desperate. She looked radiant. She looked free. She looked like someone who'd finally stepped into the life they were meant to have all along. And Bradley looked like a man who'd just realized he'd traded a diamond for broken glass. That night, alone in Reese's cramped bedroom while she scrolled through her phone beside him, Bradley pulled up Sicily's contact and typed out a message. I saw your photo. You look beautiful. I'm happy for you. He stared at it for a long time before deleting it unsent. What was the point? She'd moved on. She was thriving. She probably spent exactly 0 minutes per day thinking about him. And he spent every waking moment regretting what he'd thrown away. Chapter 5. When the ex-wife glows up, everyone notices. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so complete they realize they were never even necessary. Sicily stood at the front of the university lecture hall, addressing a room of 200 architecture students, and felt more alive than she had in decades. The topic was sustainable design in urban environments, but what she was really teaching them was something else entirely. That architecture wasn't just about buildings, it was about creating spaces where people could become their best selves. The question isn't what do we want to build, she said, advancing her slide to show her Dubai Wellness Center design. The question is, who do we want to become? Every space we create shapes the people who use it. So we have a responsibility, a moral imperative, to build spaces that elevate humanity, not just showcase our egos. After the lecture, students swarmed her with questions. A young woman with bright eyes and an eager voice asked, "How did you get to where you are? How did you become so successful?" Sicily thought about the real answer, about putting a man through medical school while working double shifts, about sacrificing her own education, about years of making herself small. But these students didn't need her trauma, they needed her triumph. "I stopped waiting for permission," she said simply. "I stopped asking if I was good enough and started proving that I was." That evening, she met her sister Diane for dinner at a new rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. They hadn't seen each other in years. Bradley had always found reasons why visits were inconvenient, why Diane's lifestyle was too chaotic for their suburban calm. Now, watching her sister walk toward the table in a flowing dress and bold jewelry, Sicily realized what she'd been missing. Diane was only 3 years older, but looked 10 years younger, unencumbered by a man who took more than he gave. "Look at you," Diane said, pulling Sicily into a tight hug. "Sister, you are glowing. So are you. God, I've missed you." "Then why did we go 3 years without seeing each other?" It wasn't an accusation, just a question. "Because I let him isolate me." Sicily sat down, grateful for the bluntness. Diane never softened truth. "He didn't like that you were divorced and unstable. He thought you were a bad influence." Diane laughed, loud and genuine. I am absolutely a bad influence. I told you not to marry him in the first place. You did, and I didn't listen. Well, better late than never. Diane ordered them a bottle of wine. Expensive, celebratory. Now tell me everything. Simone gave me the basics, but I want details. Who is this child having his baby? Over the next 2 hours, Cicely told her everything. The affair, the discovery, the divorce proceedings. But more importantly, she told Diane about Italy, about the Dubai project, about the university lecture, about remembering who she was. Diane listened, refilling their glasses, her face shifting between anger at Bradley and pride in her sister. When Cicely finished, Diane raised her glass. To the Thompson sisters, we don't need men to complete us. They're just occasionally pleasant accessories. Cicely laughed so hard she almost spit out her wine. They made plans, a trip to New Orleans for Diane's birthday, a sister weekend at the coast, regular weekly calls. Cicely added everything to her calendar and felt her life expanding, filling up with connection and joy. She didn't mention that Bradley had tried to contact her 7 times that week, that he'd shown up at her office twice only to be turned away by her fiercely protective assistant, that his messages had gone from apologetic to angry to desperate. She didn't mention him because he simply didn't matter anymore. Meanwhile, Bradley's world continued to collapse. At the hospital, his colleagues treated him with a coolness that bordered on contempt. Word had spread about the affair, about the younger woman, about the divorce. In the break room, conversations stopped when he entered. Invitations to department dinners dried up. Even the nurses, who'd always respected him, now gave him only the minimum required professional courtesy. Worse, Reese was becoming impossible to live with. Her pregnancy mood swings were violent, unpredictable. One moment she'd be affectionate, the next she'd be screaming at him for crimes as minor as leaving a dish in the sink. "You're suffocating me," she shouted one evening when he asked if she wanted to watch a movie together. "I can't breathe in this relationship. You're always here, always hovering." "I live here," he said, confused. "Well, maybe that's the problem." She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. Bradley sat on the couch, staring at the apartment that felt more like a prison every day. He picked up his phone and scrolled through social media, unable to help himself. There was Cicely again, this time at a charity gala, stunning in a black gown, presenting a check to a women's shelter. The caption noted she'd donated $50,000 and volunteered to design renovations for the facility. $50,000. The same amount he'd stolen from their house to fund Reese's failed boutique. His phone rang. The hospital. His stomach dropped even before he answered. "Dr. Norton, this is Chief Henderson. We need you to come in tomorrow for a meeting with the board. There's been a complaint filed against you regarding prescription practices." Bradley's hands went numb. "What kind of complaint?" "We'll discuss it tomorrow. 9 a.m. Don't be late." The call ended. Bradley sat in the dark apartment, listening to Reese watching videos in the bedroom, and felt the walls closing in. The next morning, he sat across from the hospital board while they laid out their concerns. A pharmacist had flagged multiple prescriptions he'd written for Reese: pain medications, anxiety medications, sleep aids, all legitimate prescriptions, all properly documented. But the frequency and dosage raised questions. "Dr. Norton, is Reese Ball your patient or your girlfriend?" Chief Henderson asked. "She's my girlfriend, and she's pregnant. She has legitimate medical needs." "That you're filling as her physician, that's a conflict of interest, and you know it." Bradley felt sweat bead on his forehead. "Her primary care physician is on maternity leave. I was helping her manage symptoms until..." "Until when?" "Until your relationship ends and she claims you were overprescribing. Until there's a lawsuit." Henderson leaned forward. "Bradley, you're a good surgeon, but your judgment has been seriously compromised. We're placing you on administrative review, pending a full investigation. You're suspending me. We're protecting the hospital, and honestly, we're protecting you." Henderson's expression was almost sympathetic. "Take some time. Get your personal life in order. If the investigation comes back clean, we'll discuss reinstatement. Bradley drove home in a daze. He'd been suspended. His career, the one thing he'd always been certain of, the identity he'd clung to even as everything else fell apart, was now in question. When he told Reese, she didn't react the way he expected. "So you're not working at all?" "I'm suspended pending investigation. They're paying me partial salary." "Partial salary?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "Great, that's just great. How am I supposed to finish setting up the boutique with partial salary?" "Reese, did you hear what I said? My career is in jeopardy." "Your career? What about my business? What about our future?" "I'm worried about my medical license." She stood up, her hand on her belly. "You know what? I'm done. I'm done with your drama, your divorce, your pathetic moping about your perfect ex-wife, who clearly was too good for you anyway. I'm 28 weeks pregnant and I'm stressed out of my mind because you can't get your life together." "I gave up everything for you," Bradley said quietly. "I didn't ask you to. You came after me, remember? You're the one who said your marriage was dead, that your wife didn't understand you, that you were so unhappy." Reese's eyes were cold. "You sold me a lie, Bradley. You said leaving her would make us happy, but you're just as miserable now as you were then. The only difference is now you've dragged me down with you." She grabbed her purse and keys. "I'm going to my friend Sarah's. Don't wait up." The door slammed. The apartment went silent. Bradley pulled out his phone and did something he'd resisted for weeks. He drove to Cicely's neighborhood, not to her house, just to the area. He parked down the street and watched as she arrived home from somewhere, wearing workout clothes, glowing with health and vitality. She was laughing, talking on her phone, so animated and alive. She went inside the house they'd shared, except it wasn't theirs anymore. It was hers. He could see through the window she'd changed everything. New furniture, new art, new life, a life that looked infinitely better than his. He sat in his car until dark, watching her lights glow warm against the evening, and finally understood what he'd done. He hadn't left a broken marriage. He'd broken a perfectly good marriage because he was too weak, too insecure, too threatened by his wife's strength to celebrate it. And now she was free. She was thriving. She was becoming exactly who she was meant to be all along. While he sat alone in a car outside a life he'd thrown away, realizing too late that he'd had everything and had been too blind to see it. Chapter 6. The investigation that shattered him. Some men don't realize they're pawns until the game is already over. Bradley stared at the certified letter, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the paper. The pharmacy board was investigating his prescription practices. 3 months of his life documented in cold, clinical language that made him sound like a drug dealer instead of a doctor who'd simply tried to help his pregnant girlfriend. Except the letter included something he hadn't expected, detailed records showing that many of the pills he'd prescribed to Reese had been filled at different pharmacies across the city, a red flag for drug diversion. And when those pharmacies were cross-referenced, they found something else. Several prescriptions had been picked up by a man named Derek Chen, who had a documented history of opioid addiction. "Reese," Bradley called out, his voice tight. She was in the bathroom doing her makeup. "We need to talk, now. I'm getting ready to meet Sarah for brunch. Can it wait?" "No." He walked to the bathroom doorway, holding up the letter. "The pharmacy board is investigating me. They have records showing the pills I prescribed you were picked up by someone named Derek Chen. Want to tell me who that is?" Reese's face went carefully blank in the mirror. "I don't know anyone named Derek. The pharmacists ID'd him, multiple locations. He picked up your prescriptions, Reese." She set down her makeup brush, her jaw clenching. "He's my ex-boyfriend. Sometimes he'd pick up my prescriptions if I was too tired to go myself. What's the big deal?" "The big deal is that he has an addiction history, and you were having him pick up opioids. I needed those pills. I was in pain." "Were you, or were you selling them to him?" Bradley felt something break inside his chest. "Were you using my medical license to supply your ex-boyfriend's addiction?" Reese spun around, her face flushing red. "How dare you accuse me of that? I'm pregnant with your child and you're treating me like a criminal. Then explain it to me. Explain why your ex-boyfriend was picking up controlled substances prescribed to you. Maybe because you were always working and I needed help. Maybe because Derek was there when you weren't." She grabbed her purse. "I don't have to listen to this. I'm leaving. If you walk out that door right now, we're done." Reese paused, her hand on the doorknob. Then she laughed, a sound that made Bradley's blood run cold. "You really think you're in a position to make threats? Bradley, I'm 7 months pregnant. Even if we're done, you're financially responsible for this baby for the next 18 years. So go ahead, end it. See how well that works out for you." She left. The apartment fell silent, except for the sound of Bradley's ragged breathing. He sat down on the couch and put his head in his hands. His career was on the line. He was under investigation by the state medical board, and the woman he'd destroyed his marriage for had been using him the entire time. His phone buzzed, a text from his daughter. "Dad, we need to talk about something. Can I come over?" Simone arrived an hour later. She looked around Reese's apartment with barely concealed disgust before sitting across from him at the small dining table. "Where's your girlfriend?" "Out. We're having problems." "I'm not surprised." Simone pulled her phone from her bag. "Dad, I need you to be honest with me. Did you know Mom hired a private investigator?" Bradley's stomach dropped. "What?" "She hired an investigator to look into Reese. And Dad, there's some stuff you need to know." Simone slid her phone across the table. "Reese Ball isn't her real name. It's Reese Ballard. She changed it after she left Oregon 3 years ago." On the screen was a newspaper article from Portland. The headline read, "Medical professional faces charges after relationship with patient." Bradley read with mounting horror. A doctor named James Chen had nearly lost his license after becoming involved with a patient, Reese Ballard, then 28 years old. During their relationship, he'd prescribed her various medications, which she'd then given to her boyfriend, not named in the article, but Bradley knew it was Derek. When the scheme was discovered, Reese had disappeared, leaving Dr. Chen to face the board alone. "It gets worse," Simone said quietly. She pulled up another article, this one from 2 years earlier in Seattle. Same pattern. Older professional man, younger woman claiming pregnancy, financial support requested for failed business venture, sudden disappearance. "She's done this before," Bradley whispered. "Multiple times. Mom's investigator found at least 4 similar situations in the past 6 years. She targets successful older men, convinces them to leave their wives, gets pregnant, or claims to be pregnant, and bleeds them dry financially before moving on." Simone looked at her father with something between pity and disgust. "The question is she actually pregnant with your baby?" Bradley thought about the ultrasound photos Reese had shown him. The doctor's appointments she'd gone to alone because he was working. The way she'd refused to let him accompany her to recent checkups, claiming she needed her independence. "I don't know," he admitted. "Mom wants to help you," Simone said. "Not because she forgives you or wants you back, but because you're our father, and this woman is dangerous. Mom has enough evidence to go to the police, but she wanted to talk to you first. Why would she help me after what I did to her? Because that's who Mom is. She's a better person than you ever deserved." Simone stood up. "She's meeting with her lawyer tomorrow at 10. If you want her help, be there. Bring any evidence you have about the prescriptions, the money you gave Reese, everything. But Dad, this is the only time she's going to offer. After this, you're on your own." After Simone left, Bradley sat in the dark apartment looking at the photos on his phone. There was Cicely at their wedding. So young, so radiant, so full of hope. There were his kids as babies, Cicely always the one holding them, caring for them, sacrificing for them. There was their 20th anniversary, where he'd given a speech about how lucky he was to have such a strong, capable wife, words he'd meant but had later come to resent. And there was Reese in every recent photo. Reese laughing at his jokes. Reese making him feel young and exciting. Reese who'd seen him coming from a mile away and had played him perfectly. He'd traded a diamond for fool's gold. His phone rang. "Reese. Bradley, I need you to transfer $5,000 to my account tonight. The boutique landlord is threatening to cancel my lease. No. Silence. Then, what? I said no. I'm not giving you any more money until we figure out what's going on with these prescriptions. Are you serious right now? I'm pregnant with your baby and you're going to abandon me financially? I don't know if you're pregnant with my baby. I want a paternity test. Reese laughed, sharp and cruel. You want a paternity test? Fine. But you're not getting one until after the baby is born. And until then, you're going to pay for everything. The apartment, the boutique, my medical bills, or I'm going to the hospital board myself and telling them you coerced me into accepting those prescriptions. Who do you think they'll believe, the respected surgeon or the young pregnant victim? She hung up. Bradley sat frozen, finally understanding the trap he was in. If he cooperated, he'd be financially ruined. If he didn't, she'd destroy what was left of his career. He picked up his phone and called the one person who might be able to help him, even though he had no right to ask. Cicely answered on the third ring. What do you want, Bradley? I need help, he said, and his voice broke. Cicely, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need your help. There was a long silence. Then, Lorraine's office, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring everything. Bank statements, prescription records, text messages, everything. And Bradley, this is the only time I'm offering. Don't waste it. She hung up before he could thank her. Bradley sat in the dark apartment, the walls he'd thought were his new beginning now revealed as the prison they'd always been, and finally cried, not for the marriage he'd destroyed or the life he'd thrown away, but for the man he'd been before he let insecurity and weakness turn him into someone he didn't recognize, and for the woman who was strong enough to help him anyway, even after he'd broken her heart. Chapter 7. The truth about Reese Evil doesn't announce itself with horns. It smiles sweetly while destroying you piece by piece. Lorraine Foster's conference room felt like a war room. Evidence spread across the table. Bank statements, prescription records, social media posts, printed and highlighted, witness statements. Cicely sat at one end, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, her expression unreadable. Bradley sat at the other, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. Between them, Lorraine orchestrated the takedown with surgical precision. Let's start with the prescriptions, she said, sliding a folder toward Bradley. These are records from 6 different pharmacies showing medications prescribed by you for Reese Ball, or Reese Ballard, her legal name, being picked up by Derek Chen. Derek has a documented opioid addiction and 2 prior arrests for drug-related offenses. Bradley flipped through the pages, his face ashen. I only meant to help her with pregnancy discomfort. I'm sure you did. Unfortunately, intent doesn't matter when prescription drugs end up in the hands of addicts. Lorraine pulled out another folder. This is where it gets interesting. We pulled Reese's phone records legally through the discovery process. She's been in constant contact with Derek throughout your relationship. Daily texts, calls, some lasting over an hour. She said he was just a friend, Bradley mumbled. He's more than that. Cicely spoke for the first time, her voice steady. The private investigator I hired followed them for 2 weeks. Derek Chen visits Reese's apartment regularly, usually when you're at work. They meet at restaurants, at his apartment. On 3 occasions they were photographed kissing. She slid photos across the table. Bradley stared at images of Reese and Derek, clearly intimate, clearly comfortable with each other in ways that suggested a relationship that had never ended. The pregnancy, Bradley said, his voice hollow. Is it even mine? Lorraine pulled out the final folder. The investigator obtained Reese's medical records, again, legally, through proper channels. According to her gynecologist, she's 32 weeks pregnant, which means conception occurred approximately 7 months ago. We started seeing each other 10 months ago. Yes, but according to these text messages, Lorraine displayed phone records, Reese was still sleeping with Derek up until 6 months ago. The timing makes paternity questionable. Bradley dropped his head into his hands. I'm such an idiot. Yes, Cicely said calmly. You are, but that's not why we're here. We're here because Reese Ballard is a con artist who's done this before, and we need to make sure she doesn't do it again." She nodded to Lorraine, who pulled out a thick document. "This is everything we've compiled on Reese's pattern of behavior over the past 6 years. 4 previous relationships with older professional men. 3 resulted in financial exploitation. 1 resulted in a man nearly losing his medical license, just like you're facing now." "What do you want me to do?" Bradley asked. "We want you to file charges," Lorraine said. "Criminal fraud, prescription drug diversion, theft. With your testimony and our evidence, we can ensure she faces consequences." "She's pregnant." "With a baby that's probably not yours," Cicely said sharply. "Bradley, I know you want to believe you're responsible for a child, but even if you are, letting this woman get away with destroying your career and bleeding you dry won't help that baby. It will just give her more power to hurt other people." Bradley looked at his ex-wife, the woman he'd betrayed, humiliated, abandoned, and saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected. Not hatred, not even satisfaction at his downfall, just a clear-eyed assessment of the situation and a determination to handle it efficiently. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. "I'm not helping you. I'm protecting our children from having their father's reputation destroyed by a con artist. I'm protecting other potential victims. And I'm teaching you what it means to face consequences and still choose to do the right thing." She leaned forward. "You made terrible choices, Bradley. You hurt me, you hurt our children, and you hurt yourself. But I won't let Reese Ballard make you a criminal on top of it all." Lorraine slid a document across to Bradley. "This is a statement. If you sign it, we go to the police and the medical board with everything we have. Reese will be arrested for prescription fraud and theft. The charges against you will likely be dropped once they understand you were being manipulated." Bradley read through the statement, his hands shaking. "If I do this, she'll tell everyone I abandoned my pregnant girlfriend." "She's going to do that anyway," Cicely said. "The question is whether you're going to be a victim or someone who stands up and tells the truth." He picked up the pen, signed his name. The weight of the mistake pressed down on him, but for the first time in months, he felt like he was doing something right. "Good," Lorraine said, gathering the documents. "I'll file this with the district attorney's office this afternoon. Expect the police to want a full statement from you by end of week." "What should I tell Reese?" "Nothing," Cicely said firmly. "Pack your things and leave that apartment today. Don't tell her where you're going. Don't respond to her calls or texts. Let the police handle it." Bradley nodded numbly. He looked at Cicely, this woman he'd spent 27 years with but had never really seen. "I owe you. You owe me nothing. I'm doing this because it's right, not because I forgive you." She stood, collecting her purse. "But Bradley, when this is over and you've rebuilt your life, I hope you'll remember what it cost to throw away something real for something that sparkled. I hope you'll learn from it." She walked out, her heels clicking across the floor, leaving him sitting in the wreckage of the life he'd built on lies. That evening, Bradley went back to the apartment while Reese was out. He packed his belongings quickly, efficiently, taking only what was his. On the kitchen counter, he left a check for 2 months' rent and a note. "I know the truth, don't contact me again." He moved into a cheap extended-stay hotel and felt oddly relieved by the smallness of it, the simplicity. No more pretending, no more lies. Just him and the consequences of his choices. 3 days later, Reese was arrested at the apartment. The local news ran a story about a pharmaceutical sales rep being charged with prescription drug fraud. Bradley's name was mentioned as a victim, not a co-conspirator. His phone exploded with calls, friends, colleagues, family, but he answered only one. "Cicely, I saw the news, thank you." "You're welcome. How are you holding up?" It was such a normal question, so ordinary, that it made his throat tight. "I'm okay. Better than I deserve to be." "Bradley, I need to tell you something." Her voice was softer now, less guarded. "Reese is claiming you coerced her into the relationship. She's going to play victim as hard as she can. Let her. The evidence speaks for itself." "Good. That's..." Good. She paused. The medical board called me. They want a statement about your character. I told them you were a good father and a skilled surgeon who made a personal mistake but wasn't a criminal. I hope that's all right. Bradley's eyes burned. You did that? Of course I did. I told you, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because it's right. She sighed. Look, you broke my heart. You humiliated me. You threw away our marriage like it was nothing, but I won't let you lose your career over a con artist. You'll face consequences for what you did to us. That's what the divorce is for, but you shouldn't lose everything. I don't understand why you're being so kind to me. Because I'm not doing this for you, Bradley. I'm doing it for the woman I want to be, and that woman doesn't let anger turn her cruel, even when she has every right to be. After they hung up, Bradley sat in his hotel room and finally let himself fully grasp what he'd lost. Not just a woman, but a partner, a friend, someone who loved him enough to save him even after he'd destroyed them. Meanwhile, Cicely sat in her home office, staring at the phone in her hand. Helping Bradley had been the right thing to do, but it had cost her something too. It had forced her to relive the betrayal, to face him, to remember everything they'd been. But it had also shown her something crucial. She was strong enough to help the person who'd hurt her most without losing herself in the process. She could be kind without being weak. She could demand accountability without being cruel. She picked up her journal and wrote, "Today I learned that grace isn't about forgetting what someone did to you. It's about remembering who you are despite what they did. And I am someone who chooses integrity over revenge, even when revenge would feel so much sweeter." She closed the journal, stood, and walked to her window. The city lights spread out before her, and somewhere out there, Bradley was learning to live with his choices. But Cicely? She was learning to live beyond them. And that made all the difference. Chapter 8. The Man Who Lost Everything. Redemption doesn't come from begging. It comes from accepting you destroyed something irreplaceable. Bradley Norton sat in the office of Dr. Sarah Chen, his new therapist, and tried to articulate the depth of his failure. 4 months had passed since Reese's arrest. The paternity test, conducted after the baby's birth, had confirmed what everyone suspected. The child was Derek's, not his. Bradley had signed away all claims, all responsibilities, all connection to that chapter of his life. The medical board had cleared him after a thorough investigation showed he'd been manipulated. He'd been reinstated at the hospital, but had voluntarily stepped down from his surgical rotation, taking a position in the teaching program instead. He needed to rebuild trust, and he knew it. "Tell me about your marriage," Dr. Chen said. She was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes that reminded him painfully of his mother. His mother. That was another wound that hadn't healed. "My marriage was the best thing in my life, and I destroyed it because I was too insecure to appreciate it," Bradley said. The words came easier now after weeks of therapy. Cicely was brilliant, successful, strong, and instead of celebrating that, I resented it. I felt diminished by her accomplishments. Why do you think that was? Because I built my identity on being needed. I was the doctor, the provider, the one who saved lives. But Cicely didn't need saving. She was complete on her own. He laughed bitterly. So I found someone who did need me, or pretended to. It made me feel important. And now? Now I realize I confused being needed with being valued. Cicely valued me. She chose me every day for 27 years, but that wasn't enough because I couldn't see my own worth unless someone was depending on me. Dr. Chen made a note. "Have you apologized to her?" "Multiple times. She's been gracious, professional. She helped save my career even after what I did." Bradley's voice cracked. "But she doesn't owe me forgiveness. I know that." "What do you owe yourself?" The question caught him off guard. "What?" "You've spent our sessions talking about what you owe others, your ex-wife, your children, your patients. But what do you owe yourself?" Bradley sat with the question. "I owe myself the truth. I owe myself the work of becoming someone worthy of the second chance I've been given, even if that chance doesn't include Cicely." After therapy, he drove to his new apartment, modest, clean, his. He'd sold the BMW and bought a used sedan. He'd cancelled his country club membership and started volunteering at a free clinic on weekends. He'd donated half his salary to causes Sicily cared about: women's shelters, architecture scholarships, community development, not to win her back, not to earn forgiveness, but because it was right. His phone rang. Simone. "Hey, Dad, how was therapy?" "Good, hard. How are you?" "I'm fine. Listen, I have news. Grandma Patricia is in the hospital. She had a heart attack this morning." Bradley's world tilted. "Is she okay?" "She's stable now, but Dad, it was serious. The doctors say the next 48 hours are critical." He was at the hospital within 30 minutes. His mother looked small in the bed, tubes and monitors surrounding her. Julian was already there, and Simone arrived shortly after. They stood together as a fractured family, united only by their love for this woman. "Has anyone called your mother?" Patricia asked weakly, looking at the kids. "She's on her way," Simone said. Sicily arrived 20 minutes later, still in her work clothes from a site visit. She went straight to Patricia's bedside, taking the older woman's hand. "You gave us a scare," Sicily said softly. "I'm too stubborn to die yet." Patricia smiled, then looked at her son. "Bradley, take Sicily to the cafeteria. I need to talk to the kids alone." They walked in silence to the elevator, rode down in silence, got coffee in silence. Finally, sitting at a corner table away from other visitors, Bradley spoke. "Thank you for coming." "Of course I came. Patricia is family. She always will be." "She loves you." "I love her too." Sicily stirred her coffee unnecessarily. "How are you doing, really?" "I'm in therapy. I quit drinking. I didn't realize how much I was using it to numb things. I'm teaching instead of operating because I need to rebuild my confidence." He looked at her directly. "I'm trying to become someone who deserves respect, even if I can never earn yours back." Sicily was quiet for a long moment. "Bradley, I don't hate you. I want you to know that." "You should." "Maybe. But hate requires energy I don't want to spend on you anymore." She met his eyes. "You hurt me. You betrayed me. You made me question my worth, my judgment, everything about myself. I spent 3 months in therapy working through what you did to me. I'm sorry." "I know you are. But sorry doesn't change what happened. It doesn't give me back the years I spent making myself smaller for you. It doesn't erase the humiliation of finding out my husband preferred a con artist to me." Bradley absorbed each word like a physical blow. "You were always too good for me." "No, I was exactly what you needed. You were just too broken to see it." She finished her coffee. "But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I've built a life I love. I have a career that fulfills me. I have friends, family, purpose. I don't need you for anything." "I know, and I'm glad. Watching you thrive has been the only good thing to come from this nightmare." They returned to Patricia's room. The older woman was sleeping now, the kids sitting vigil beside her. Sicily took a chair on one side, Bradley on the other, with Patricia between them. As the evening wore into night, nurses came and went. The kids dozed, and Bradley watched Sicily reading a book on her tablet, the light from the screen illuminating her face, and saw clearly, perhaps for the first time, how beautiful she was. Not just physically, though she was stunning, but the beauty of her competence, her grace, her ability to show up for people even when it cost her something. At 2 a.m., Patricia's monitor alarmed. Nurses rushed in. The kids woke. Sicily grabbed Patricia's hand. "We're here," she said firmly. "Patricia, we're all here. Don't you dare leave us." The medical team worked quickly, adjusting medications, stabilizing readings. After 20 terrifying minutes, Patricia's vitals settled. The crisis passed. She opened her eyes and looked at the faces surrounding her, her grandchildren, her son, and the woman who'd been more of a daughter than a daughter-in-law. "All of you here," she whispered. "Together." "Always," Sicily said, and Bradley heard the truth in it. Whatever had broken between them, some bonds remained. Not romantic, not reconciled, but family, in the ways that mattered. Patricia survived the night. Over the next week, she improved steadily, but the heart attack had been a warning. She had months, maybe a year if she was careful. She called Bradley to her home once she was released, just the two of them. "I'm not going to waste time on pleasantries," she said, sitting in her favorite chair with tea. "I'm dying, and before I go, I need to tell you what I think of the way you've lived your life." "Mom." "Hush. You'll listen." She set down her tea with a shaky hand. "You are my son and I love you. But you are also a coward who threw away the best thing that ever happened to you because you were too insecure to deserve her." Bradley flinched but didn't argue. "Cicely is extraordinary. She's brilliant, kind, strong and beautiful. She gave you everything, and you repaid her with betrayal." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "But here's what kills me, Bradley. Even after what you did, she showed up at that hospital for me. She held my hand. She stayed all night. That's who she is. Someone who keeps her commitments even when the person who should have kept his didn't." "I know, Mom." "Do you? Do you really?" Patricia leaned forward. "Because if you truly understood what you lost, you'd spend every remaining day of your life trying to become worthy of the grace she's shown you. Not to win her back, I don't think that's possible, but to honor what she gave you by being better." Bradley's vision blurred. "I'm trying. Try harder." Patricia sat back, exhausted. "I don't have much time left. Don't waste yours." A month later, on a cold morning in late autumn, Patricia Norton died peacefully in her sleep. The funeral was well attended. She'd been beloved in the community, active in charity work, known for her kindness. Bradley stood at the graveside, flanked by his children, and felt the weight of his mother's final words. Across from him, Cicely wore black and stood straight, dignified, present. She'd been there for every detail, helping with arrangements, calling relatives, organizing the reception. After the service, at his mother's house, people milled about sharing memories. Bradley found Cicely in the kitchen preparing coffee. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Your mother was important to me. This is how I honor her. She loved you more than she loved me, I think." Cicely glanced at him. "She loved you desperately. She just wished you'd loved yourself enough to make better choices." "I wish that too." Bradley helped her carry cups to the living room. "Cicely, I need to tell you something. Not because I expect anything from you, but because my mother taught me that truth matters, even when it's hard." "What is it?" "I'm sorry doesn't cover what I did to you, but I'm sorry anyway. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like your success was threatening. I'm sorry for every moment I wasn't there for our kids because I was working late, or claimed I was. I'm sorry for destroying something beautiful, because I was too weak to appreciate it." He swallowed hard. "Most of all, I'm sorry that you spent 27 years with someone who didn't deserve you. You should have had a partner who celebrated your strength instead of resenting it." Cicely's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. "Thank you for saying that, it helps. I don't expect forgiveness. I know, but I'm giving it to you anyway." She touched his arm briefly. "Not because you've earned it, but because holding on to anger was poisoning me. So I'm letting it go. I'm forgiving you for my own peace. You're the strongest person I've ever known. No, I'm just a woman who chose herself for once. And Bradley, I hope you choose yourself too. I hope you become the man you were always capable of being. Not for me, for you." She walked away to speak with guests, leaving Bradley standing in his mother's kitchen, finally understanding what it meant to receive grace you didn't deserve, and finally ready to do the work of becoming worthy of the second chance he'd been given. Chapter 9. The Woman Who Chose Herself. The greatest love story isn't finding someone new. It's falling so deeply in love with yourself that nothing else matters. 1 year after she'd found Bradley crying in their kitchen, Cicely Thompson stood at the entrance of her completed Dubai Wellness Center, watching the sunset paint the building in shades of amber and gold. The structure rose from the desert like a prayer, traditional Islamic arches meeting contemporary glass, solar panels disguised as decorative screens, water features that cooled the air while feeding gardens that would feed the community. It was her masterpiece. the building that would define her career, that would outlast her, that would serve women for generations, and she'd designed every inch of it alone, on her own terms, without compromising her vision for anyone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "Mom, Mason proposed." I said yes. "Can we come over tomorrow to celebrate?" Cicely smiled and texted back congratulations, already mentally planning how to transform her backyard for an engagement party. Her son, getting married at 24, to the man he'd loved since college. She'd raised him to know his own heart, to not wait for the world's permission to be happy. She'd finally learned that lesson herself. Back home in her city, autumn had painted the trees gold and crimson. Cicely had spent the year becoming someone she barely recognized from a year ago, someone lighter, freer, unapologetically herself. She'd taken pottery classes and made terrible vases that she displayed anyway. She'd learned to salsa dance with a group of women who met every Thursday at a local studio. She'd traveled to Greece, Morocco, and Japan, always solo, always content. She hadn't dated, not because she was bitter or scared, but because she was full, complete. Every evening she came home to her quiet house and felt nothing but peace. She cooked meals for one and savored every bite. She spent weekends at her drafting table or in her garden or at art galleries, drinking in beauty without needing to share it with anyone. "I think you're the happiest single person I've ever met," Diane had said during their last visit. "It's actually kind of inspiring and intimidating, like you've figured out something the rest of us are still struggling with." "What's that?" "That you're enough. Just you, exactly as you are. You're enough." Cicely had carried those words with her like a talisman. You're enough. Now, sitting in her home office updating her website with photos of the Dubai Center, she saw an email notification. An invitation to Julian and Mason's engagement party. They'd decided to host it themselves at a local restaurant, casual and joyful. Bradley's name was on the guest list. She called her son. "Julian, honey, you don't have to invite your father if it makes things uncomfortable." "Mom, he's my dad. He messed up with you, but he's been different lately, better. He's in therapy, he volunteers, he actually shows up now. I want him there." Julian paused. "Is that okay with you?" "Of course it is. I want you to have a relationship with him." "But are you okay seeing him?" Cicely considered the question honestly. "Yes, I am. He doesn't hurt me anymore, Julian. I've moved past it." And she realized it was true. When she thought about Bradley now, she felt nothing but mild pity and a distant hope that he'd found some peace. The man who'd shattered her world had become simply her ex-husband, someone she'd once loved who'd made terrible choices. Nothing more, nothing less. The engagement party was beautiful. Mason's family was warm and welcoming, immediately embracing Julian and treating Cicely like she'd always been part of their circle. She wore a dress the color of good red wine, her hair up in a style Simone had helped her choose, and felt gorgeous without needing anyone to tell her so. Bradley arrived alone, dressed simply but well. He'd lost weight, looked older, but somehow healthier. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or recognition of what he'd lost. They gravitated toward each other naturally during the cocktail hour. Two people who'd once shared a life now navigating how to share the same space. "You look incredible," Bradley said. "Thank you. You look well." "I'm doing better. Therapy helps. Work helps. Living honestly helps." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Julian and Mason greet guests. Their son glowed with happiness, his face bright with love. "We did something right," Cicely said softly. "Look at him. You did something right. I was barely there. You're here now. That matters to him." Bradley turned to her. "Cicely, can I tell you something?" "All right." "Watching you this past year, seeing you travel, seeing you succeed, seeing you just bloom, has been the most beautiful and painful thing I've ever experienced. Beautiful because you deserve all of it. Painful because I finally understand what I threw away." "Bradley, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know we're done. I know I destroyed something irreplaceable. I just want you to know that I see it now. I see you, and I'm sorry it took losing you to finally open my eyes." Cicely studied his face, seeing genuine remorse there. I believe you, and I hope that awareness helps you be better in the future, for yourself, not for me. Are you happy? He asked. Really happy? Yes, she said without hesitation. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. Good. You deserve happiness. He smiled sadly. Even if it doesn't include me. Simone appeared then, linking her arm through Cicely's. Mum, Mason's mother wants to talk wedding venues with you. Apparently, you're the architect everyone wants to hire. Cicely excused herself, leaving Bradley standing by the bar. She spent the rest of the evening surrounded by love, her children's, their partners, their friends. She gave a toast that made Julian cry and made everyone laugh. She danced with her son and with Mason's father and with Diane, who'd flown in just for this. She didn't dance with Bradley. There was no need. As the party wound down, Bradley approached her one final time. Cicely, I need to ask you something. Not for me, for our kids. He took a breath. Would you ever be okay with us being friendly? Not friends exactly, but civil enough that the kids don't have to manage us separately. I don't want Mason and Julian's wedding to be awkward. I don't want Simone to feel like she can't talk about me to you or vice versa. Cicely considered the request. I think we're already there, aren't we? We just had a perfectly pleasant evening. We did. But I wanted to make sure you were comfortable with that. I am. Bradley, I'm not going to pretend we have a friendship, but we have history and we have children we both love. That's enough foundation for civility. Thank you. He looked like he wanted to say more but didn't. Instead, he simply said, Congratulations on the Dubai Center. Patricia would have been so proud. The mention of his mother made Cicely's throat tight. She was an amazing woman. She loved you until the day she died. That ring she gave you, are you wearing it? Cicely held up her right hand, showing Patricia's ring catching the light. Every day, it reminds me of my worth. Bradley's eyes glistened. Good. That's good. He left shortly after, and Cicely stayed to help clean up, laughing with her children and their partners, already planning the wedding that would come. Driving home alone, windows down despite the cool air, Cicely felt something settle into place. She'd faced Bradley and felt nothing but peace. She'd watched him acknowledge his failures and felt no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet hope that he'd continue healing. And more importantly, she'd spent the evening as exactly who she was, powerful, accomplished, joyful, complete, without apologizing for a single moment of it. At home, she made tea and sat in her favorite chair, looking out at the garden she'd redesigned. Everything in this house reflected her now. Bold colors, interesting textures, art that made her feel something. The life she'd built wasn't perfect, but it was authentically hers. She picked up her journal and wrote, Year 1 of my new life is complete. I survived the ending of a marriage. I built my dream project. I traveled alone and loved it. I learned pottery and salsa dancing, and that I look good in red. I raised children who know how to love bravely, and most importantly, I learned that I'm enough, not because someone told me, but because I decided it was true. She closed the journal and smiled at the woman she'd become, not despite what Bradley had done, but because of how she'd chosen to respond to it. She'd chosen herself, and that choice had set her free. Chapter 10. The reunion earned through fire. True love doesn't survive betrayal, but two people who've done the work separately and completely can build something new from the ashes. 18 months after the affair, Cicely stood in the bridal suite of the Botanical Gardens, adjusting Simone's veil while her daughter cried happy tears. At 27, Simone looked luminous in a simple silk gown, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo adorned with tiny white flowers. I can't believe I'm getting married, Simone said for the 10th time that morning. Believe it, baby. You found someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway. That's rare and precious. Cicely kissed her daughter's forehead. Your father and I might not have made it work, but we made you, and you're the best thing either of us ever did. Is it weird, having Dad here? No, it's right. He's your father. And honestly, sweetheart, I'm long past feeling weird about him. Cicely smoothed her own dress, a champagne-colored sheath that made her skin glow. I'm just happy to be here celebrating you. The ceremony was beautiful. Bradley walked Simone down the aisle, both of them crying, while Cicely watched from the front row with Julian and Mason. When the officiant asked who gives this woman, Bradley said, "Her mother and I do, with all our love." And Cicely felt the rightness of it. They'd failed as spouses but succeeded as parents. That was something. At the reception, seating arrangements placed them at different tables. Cicely with Julian and Mason's family, Bradley with his siblings. They exchanged polite waves across the room but didn't seek each other out. There was no need and no awkwardness in the distance. Cicely danced with her son, with Simone's new husband Marcus, with old friends from college who'd traveled for the wedding. She laughed and celebrated, and felt utterly content. It was during the father-daughter dance that everything shifted. Bradley and Simone swayed to an old Etta James song, both crying openly. Cicely watched from her table, remembering the young man she'd married, the father he'd become despite his flaws. And she felt something unexpected. Not love, not longing, but a gentle nostalgia for the good moments they'd shared before everything fell apart. After the dance, Bradley didn't return to his table. He walked over to Cicely's instead. "May I?" He gestured to the empty seat beside her. "Of course." They sat in silence for a moment, watching guests dance and celebrate. Finally, Bradley spoke. "Do you remember our wedding?" "Of course. You wore your grandmother's pearls. You cried during your vows. I promised to love you for the rest of my life." He looked at her. "I broke that promise. But sitting here, watching our daughter start her marriage, I want you to know something. I did love you. I loved you badly, selfishly, inadequately. But I loved you." Cicely studied him. 18 months of therapy and consequence had changed him visibly. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something humbler. The entitlement had burned away, leaving only accountability. "I know you did," she said. "And I loved you. We just lost our way. I lost our way. You were always steady. I was the one who got insecure and stupid and threw away something irreplaceable. We were both imperfect, Bradley. I spent years making myself smaller because I thought that's what marriage required. That wasn't healthy either. You were trying to save us. I was the one who destroyed us." The DJ announced the mother-son dance. Cicely excused herself to dance with Julian, leaving Bradley at the table. When she returned, he was still there, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Cicely, can I ask you something? If I had been different, if I had celebrated your success instead of resenting it, if I had been secure enough to love you as you were, do you think we would have made it?" She considered the question honestly. Maybe, or maybe we would have grown apart for different reasons. We got married young, Bradley. We built a life before we knew who we were as individuals. That's hard to sustain. Do you ever miss it, what we had? I miss the idea of it sometimes, the partnership, the shared history. But I don't miss the reality of how it actually was, especially toward the end. She turned to face him fully. "I don't trust you anymore, Bradley. That's not anger. It's just truth. You broke something that can't be unbroken." "I know." He looked down at his hands. "I'm not asking to fix it. I just wonder sometimes if there's any part of what we were that could exist in who we are now." "What do you mean?" "I mean, could we ever be friends? Real friends? Not just polite acquaintances who manage our kids' events?" He rushed on before she could answer. "I'm not asking for reconciliation. I'm not asking for romance. I know that's impossible, but I miss talking to you. I miss your perspective, your honesty, the way you always cut through my bullshit. And I hope, I've become someone who might actually deserve your friendship, even if I never deserved your love." Cicely sat with the question. Could they be friends? The man sitting beside her wasn't the man she'd divorced. That man had been selfish, insecure, blind to his own toxicity. This man had done the work. She could see it in how he spoke, how he carried himself, how he showed up for their children without making it about him. "I don't know," she said finally. "I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes either. Friendship requires trust, and rebuilding that takes time." "I understand, and I'm willing to take whatever time it needs." He smiled sadly. "I've learned patience, if nothing else." "Tell me something, Bradley. Are you happy? In your life as it is now?" He thought about it. "I'm content. I'm teaching, which I love. I volunteer at the clinic, which gives me purpose. I have a small apartment that's just mine, no pretense. I go to therapy every week. I have my kids in my life again, which means everything." He looked at her. "I'm not happy like you're happy. I see how you glow, how complete you are. But I'm not miserable anymore. I'm just living honestly for the first time in my life." "That's good. I'm glad you found some peace." "What about you? Are you dating anyone?" Cicely laughed. "No, I'm not interested in dating. I'm too busy building the life I actually want." "You deserve to be loved, Cicely, by someone who gets it right this time." "Maybe. But I don't need to be loved to be complete. I learned that this past year. I'm enough on my own." Bradley's eyes filled with tears. "You always were. I was just too insecure to see it." The evening wound down. Simone and Marcus left in a shower of flower petals, heading to their honeymoon in Portugal. Guests filtered out slowly, saying goodbye to the families. Cicely was gathering her things when Bradley approached one final time. "Thank you for today, for being gracious, for raising our children right, for everything. You're welcome. Could we—" He stopped, seeming to debate something. "Would you be willing to have coffee sometime? Just coffee, just conversation, as two people who share history and are trying to figure out how to move forward." Cicely looked at this man she'd once promised forever to, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Not through the lens of love or pain, but just as he was, flawed, trying, changed. "Maybe," she said, "when I'm ready, I'll let you know." His face showed relief and gratitude. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, Cicely called him. "Bradley, it's me. I'm going to that new coffee place on Elm Street this afternoon around 2. If you want to join me, you're welcome to." He arrived exactly at 2, nervous and careful. They ordered coffee and sat at a table by the window, sunlight streaming through, making everything feel less heavy. They talked for 2 hours, about the kids, about work, about therapy, about life. It was easier than Cicely expected, natural, honest, free of the weight that had defined them before. This wasn't the dance of two people circling intimacy. This was two people who'd survived a shared catastrophe, learning they could exist in the same space without pain. "Same time next month?" Bradley asked as they parted ways. "We'll see how I feel," Cicely said, but she was smiling. They met again, and again. Slowly, carefully building something that wasn't what they'd had, but might become something new. Not romance, neither wanted that. But friendship, perhaps. Respect, certainly. The acknowledgement that two people could hurt each other terribly and still find a way to coexist peacefully. 6 months after that first coffee, they sat in Cicely's backyard at a family barbecue, watching their children and their partners laugh around the grill. Bradley had helped with the food prep, Cicely with the table settings. They worked around each other comfortably now, no longer sharp edges trying not to cut. "This is nice," Bradley said quietly. "It is," Cicely agreed. "It's not what I imagined when we got married, but it's good." "Do you think we'll ever—" "No," she said firmly, but not unkindly. "We won't ever be that again, Bradley. That's gone. But this might be better. Two people who've learned who they are, who've done the work, who can stand together for our family without needing to be together." "You're right. This is better." He smiled, sad but genuine. "I'm grateful you gave me this chance. I gave us both this chance. To be better than our worst moment." She looked at him directly. I'll never forget what you did. But I don't let it define you anymore. You've earned that. Thank you, Cicely, for everything. For saving my career, for helping me be a better father, for showing me what grace looks like. His voice broke slightly. And for being strong enough to demand I meet you as an equal. I wish I'd understood that 27 years ago. We can't change the past. We can only build better futures. Are you happy? He asked. Really, truly happy? I am. My career is everything I hoped for. My children are thriving. I have friends, purpose, peace. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She met his eyes. What about you? I'm getting there. I have a long way to go, but I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be worthy of the second chance I've been given. As the sun set and the family gathered around the table, Cicely looked at the life she'd built from the ashes of her marriage. It wasn't what she'd planned. It was better, richer, deeper, more authentically hers. She'd lost a husband but found herself, and in doing so, she'd shown her children what it meant to rise from betrayal, not bitter or broken, but blazing with purpose. She didn't need Bradley's love anymore. She had something far more powerful, her own. A note to my readers. Dear friends, thank you for walking through Cicely's journey with me. I know many of you have faced betrayal, heartbreak, and moments when you questioned your worth. I want you to know something. You are magnificent exactly as you are. Your strength isn't measured by who stays or leaves. It's measured by how you rise after the fall. Cicely's story is a reminder that it's never too late to choose yourself, to bloom again, to build a life so beautiful that the past becomes just a chapter, not the whole story. You deserve joy, peace, and a love that celebrates you, starting with the love you give yourself. Thank you for trusting me with your time. Until our next story, remember, you are enough, you are worthy, and your best chapters are still being written. With love and gratitude, Mr. Peter's Stories.